Hello everyone, I'm back. As I said I would be with my latest video, and today's video is episode 6 of Memories of the Football Terrace. And this week's video in that series is all about my experiences of watching Arsenal in the 1988-89 season. Now this was, for those of you who aren't old enough to remember, this was probably one of the most dramatic seasons in Football League history. And it had probably the most dramatic end to a football season ever in the history of English football. So I hope that you're going to enjoy that. If you've not been to my channel before, thanks very much for coming, and I hope that you enjoy it. Also, I'd like to give you a big warm welcome and thank everyone for coming back again to watch another one of my videos. And please make sure that you subscribe to my channel, put a like on the video, make some comments if you feel you want to. That would be absolutely fantastic. And also, yeah, make sure that you pass it around to other people who you think might enjoy watching it. I think you're going to enjoy this one because it was quite exciting doing it all. So anyway, without further ado, I hope that you're all well and looking after each other. And like I say, I hope you enjoy the video. So let's get on with it. Well, here we go, everyone. I'm now starting the video, my Arsenal story from during the 1988-89 season, and what a season it was. What a unbelievable ride that was for me. It really was. So here we go. Here we have it. And now during in the 88-89 season, Arsenal only really made one major signing, which was Steve Bold. And he signed for Stoke City for a fee of £390,000 on the 13th of June 1988. Now, but as far as outgoings were concerned, Arsenal sent Kevin Campbell out on loan to Leyton Orient, where he scored 9 goals in 16 games, I think. Yeah, 16 games. And Kenny Sampson, he went off to join Newcastle United in December 1988. Graham Ricks, he left to join French club Caen, I think that's how you say it, Caen, something like that. And Steve Williams went off to Luton Town in July 1988. So here we go. This is the team group picture for the season. Obviously, the manager, George Graham, there, sat in the middle. Goalkeepers, John Lukic, and I think the other one is, I'm not sure if it's Paul Barron or Reece Wilmot. And all the usual suspects are there. I can see Paul Merson, Tony Adams, Steve Bold, Alan Smith, David O'Leary, obviously Rocky and Paul Davis, Michael Thomas, Kevin Richardson. Yeah, so Brian Marwood as well. He would play a really key part in the season, as we're about to see. Okay, so I'm not quite sure what happened there, so sorry about that. Anyway, so the first game of the season saw Arsenal travel to Wimbledon, and after enjoying an impressive pre-season, where Arsenal only failed to win one of their 8 pre-season games, and that was a draw with a Swedish club called Örebro SK. Arsenal's pre-season also saw them winning the Mercantile Credit International Tournament at Wembley, where they defeated bitter rivals Tottenham Hotspur 4-0 and Bayern Munich 3-0. Now, that game against Spurs was an unbelievable one because Tottenham had Paul Gascoigne in the team, and he had a load of other new signings, and everyone was writing Arsenal off, saying that Tottenham were going to destroy us, but it didn't quite work out that way, and Arsenal ran out comfortable 4-0 winners and ended up winning the tournament by beating Bayern Munich in the final. So going into the new season, Arsenal were full of confidence, and I fully expected in myself to have an excellent season. However, despite my confidence, most pundits were writing Arsenal off as title contenders and were quoting odds of around 16-1 for Arsenal to win the title. The league campaign started well, like they went off to Wimbledon and they started with a thumping 5-1 win. A game which I remember Alan Smith scoring a hat-trick in and also watching the highlights on TV. So the next game that I can remember was on the 10th of September, which was an away game at White Hart Lane, or 3 Point Lane, as us Arsenal fans like to call it, at that time. After the impressive win at Wimbledon, Arsenal lost at home 3-2 to newly promoted Aston Villa, a game which I think I probably went to, but I can't really remember anything about it. Then next up was a trip to, like I say, was White Hart Lane, where a good run of continued with another good win thanks to goals from Brian Wilde, with Nigel Winterburn and Alan Smith. The pick of the goals for me, though, was Nigel Winterburn's goal, which was the goal that opened the scoring. Now, what happened was that Tony Adams drove at the Tottenham defence, placed a disguised pass into the path of the on-rushing Nigel Winterburn, who then smashed the ball into the bottom right-hand corner of Tottenham's net. It was a crazy first half of this game, as all the goals were scored during the first half. Arsenal had raced into a 3-1 lead, and Tottenham pulled one goal back, but thankfully we held on to win the game. There were two games between the match at Tottenham and the next game that I can remember this season, which was the game at Upton Park, and these games saw Arsenal draw 2-2 with Southampton at Highbury on the 17th of September, and they lost 2-1 to Sheffield Wednesday at Hillsborough. I didn't go to either of these games, but I didn't go to either the game against Sheffield Wednesday at Sheffield Wednesday, and I'm not sure that I went to the one against Southampton, although I probably did, but I can't remember it. So the 1st of October at West Ham versus Arsenal. I remember this game from this season because I was listening to the game on the radio while I was painting and decorating my mum's lounge and hall. I remember being very happy when the radio reported that Arsenal were 2-1 up and that we were playing well, and West Ham were having trouble containing Arsenal. And then when the 3rd and 4th goals went in, I was absolutely delighted. I was screaming the place down. And I remember my mum coming in at one point asking me to calm down because the neighbours would start complaining. And I believe a few days after, one of the neighbours asked my mum if I was all right because they'd heard me screaming. And just as she said they would. And so I thought to myself, that is not really fair to my mum or the poor neighbours, to be honest. So I thought in future I need to rein in my celebrations if I'm listening or watching games in my mum's lounge. But it was difficult, but I think I just about managed to do it well for the most part anyway. So the next game I can remember was the Mercantile Credit League Centenary Final, where Arsenal defeated Manchester United 2-1 at Villa Park. This was a special tournament as part of the celebrations for the Football League's 100-year birthday. The celebrations also included a special match at Wembley between a Football League 11 and the rest of the world 11, which my mate Mick and I were lucky enough to go to. The tournament was contested, this Mercantile Credit Centenary thing, right? It was contested by the teams that had finished in the top 8 of the First Division the previous season. And Arsenal and Manchester United both reached the final of the tournament. En route to the final, Arsenal defeated QPR 2-0 at Loftus Road in the quarter-final. In the semi-final, they defeated Liverpool 2-1 at Highbury. And in the final, and so the final between Arsenal and Manchester United took place at Villa Park in Birmingham. I remember this game being on TV, and Arsenal played really well and fully deserved their victory and played some absolutely incredible football. Arsenal won the game 2-1 thanks to goals from Paul Davies and Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas's goal was an incredible team goal with some superb passing and movement in my book. So here we can see the Arsenal celebrating their victory, and after the game, George Graham was interviewed on TV, and they asked him about what he thought about the tournament, and he said, "Look," and the answer he gave for me sums up the man's mentality. And what he said was, "If you're going to enter a tournament, win it." You know, so that just shows what his mentality was like. He was an absolute winner and just would not accept second best. Pity we can't have a manager like that now, really, isn't it? I guess, but there you go. Anyway, so the next game saw Arsenal defeat Nottingham Forest by 4-1 at the City Ground. And I remember this game because Arsenal went 1-0 down, and I was thinking, oh no, we're going to lose this one. Then Arsenal went 2-1 up, and I remember the third goal because it came from a corner, and it was one of Arsenal's well-worked corners. What happened, the ball would get played in from the corner to the near post, and I think it was usually Steve Bold would do like a flicked backward header into the centre of the penalty area, and Tony Adams would come charging in, or someone else would come charging in to header the ball home, and it was incredibly difficult to defend against. So yeah, fair play to Arsenal for that. And they ended up winning that game by 4-1. Then going back, actually, I missed the game out there. So the 2nd of November, Arsenal played Liverpool at Anfield in the League Cup 3rd round, a game that I went to with my mate Steve. And he used to go to games quite a lot with me. And I remember this well because it was my first ever visit to Anfield. And so because of this, I was quite excited. And we got our tickets through the Arsenal Travel Club, who laid on the special train to take us to Liverpool Lime Street Station. The journey of it itself was a bit of a nightmare because the train was an absolute nightmare. I mean, it looked like it had last been used in the 1960s. But there seemed to be quite a lot of meatheads on the journey. When I say meatheads, I mean sort of people who were like quite happy to have a scrap, and they're just very unsavoury characters and not the sort of people you want to be mixing with, really. And halfway into the journey, a fight broke out on the train between a group of fans who claimed to be Rangers fans and another half who claimed to be Celtic fans. It was an absolutely absurd situation and ridiculous. And the fight seemed to end, but thankfully the fight seemed to end as quickly as it had started. When we got to Liverpool Lime Street Station, thankfully there were a large number of double-decker buses waiting to take us from the railway station to the ground. And so Steve and I made sure that we distanced ourselves from the unsavoury ones that we'd seen on the train up from London, so that we didn't get dragged into any nonsense. We managed to get to the ground without any further dramas, and the game itself was incredible. From the kickoff, Arsenal tore into Liverpool, and to be honest, Liverpool were completely outclassed, and how Arsenal did not win the game with at least 2 goals to spare still baffles me. Arsenal had several efforts on goal, which were brilliantly saved by Liverpool's goalkeeper. And we had a shot cleared off the line, and also had a goal bizarrely ruled out for foul on the goalkeeper. The referee for this game, who I believe was George Courtney, ruled that the Liverpool goalkeeper had been fouled by Alan Smith. Yet, and what happened was that Alan Smith, the Liverpool goalkeeper, and the Liverpool defender all went up for a header. And what happened, the referee claimed, and what happened was when they went up for this, all went up to try and get the ball, Alan Smith headed the ball down to Brian Marwood to score. But the referee claimed that Alan Smith had fouled the Liverpool goalkeeper, but there was a Liverpool defender between Alan Smith and the goalkeeper. So how he was supposed to have fouled the goalkeeper, I'll never know. Anyway, but let's get back to the game. Arsenal played really well and they were dominant in every department. And then suddenly, completely against the run of play, Arsenal were made to rue their missed chances when John Barnes put Liverpool ahead with a typical John Barnes goal. If I remember correctly, he went on an amazing run before smashing the ball home. David Rocastle then scored an amazing goal of his own to bring the game back to 1-1 when he fired in a shot from outside the penalty area on the right-hand side of Liverpool's penalty area into the far corner of the net. Arsenal kept pushing for a winner, and in my opinion, you should have had it when, as I said, the referee bizarrely ruled out an Arsenal winner for a foul on the Liverpool goalkeeper. The game ended in a 1-1 draw, and then we made our way back to London, which went off without the incidents that the journey up to Liverpool had done. So thank God for that. However, when we got back to London, the drama kicked off again. First of all, we couldn't find a night bus to take us back to Annerley, which was where my mate Steve was living at the time. And he was going to put me up for the night. And then we arrived back in London about 1 a.m. So then we looked for a black cab to take us down to Annerley. But it seemed none were available. Every time we thought we saw one, they just said, no, we're finished for the night, we're going home. And we found out, and like I said, there was no cabs running at that time of night. So we finally had to get a mini cab to take us back to Annerley in South London. Now, this was a massive mistake. The driver was an absolute lunatic and seemed to delight in driving at extremely high speed through London. And I personally think he was trying to scare us. I also remember that when we got to Annerley, he charged us a ridiculously high price and tried to justify it by saying that he'd got us home quickly. So we just paid the guy and went off to Steve's apartment, thankful that we were just still alive. Now, the next game after this was the League Cup third round replay against Liverpool. Now, I was one of the lucky ones who managed to get in for this game. I think that I'm right in saying that their tickets, I think I'm right in saying that this was an all-ticket game and that they'd all been sold. But this would beg the question why there were so many people locked out if it was an all-ticket game, because apparently there were 6,000 people locked outside of Highbury that night who couldn't get in. I remember hearing stories from people coming into North Bank saying that there were thousands of people outside trying to get in. In the end, the police arranged for the kickoff for the game to be delayed for 15 minutes. And in the end, when the game kicked off, like I say, there were apparently over 6,000 people locked outside, and the attendance was just over 54,000, which was a monster crowd, especially for an evening game. It would have been a monster-sized crowd, even if it had been a 3 p.m. kickoff. But this was a night game. And I remember that when we played Juventus in the European Cup Winners' Cup semi-final, first leg, that over 51,000 had packed into Highbury. Anyway, the game itself was a shadow of the game that had been played at Anfield a week earlier, and then it ended in a 0-0 draw, which meant it had to go to another replay, which was played at Villa Park, which took place at Villa Park, and I think it was about 2 weeks later that happened. But sadly, Arsenal lost that game by 2-1. Then the next game, where I remember, was on the 2nd of January 1989, when Arsenal defeated Tottenham by 2-0. Now, the reason I remember this was because I watched it on TV, because it was a 5 p.m. kickoff, which was unusual for a league game at that time. And I think I'm right in saying it was the first time that an Arsenal game had kicked off at 5 o'clock. I think also this was the game where a new clock was installed at the clock end of Highbury, at the top of the new executive boxes. The game itself, I remember Paul Merson scoring a great goal. I think what happened was that he was running away from goal, and he managed to fire a shot in on the turn to give Arsenal a 1-0 lead. And then Michael Thomas scored a second goal to give Arsenal a 2-0 win. At this time, Arsenal were going toe-to-toe with Norwich City at the top of the table. They were our main rivals in the title race. And as you can see here, Arsenal had a game in hand on Norwich and were 2 points clear of them at the top. So Arsenal seemed to be in quite a strong position. And also at that point, Arsenal had a game in hand over Liverpool and were 9 points clear of them. So the next game I can remember was when Arsenal went to Goodison Park. I think I can remember this one. Remember listening to updates on the radio for this game. And it was a game which Arsenal comfortably defeated Everton by 3-1. Thanks to goals for Kevin Richardson, Alan Smith and Paul Merson. And the radio said that Arsenal had been fairly comfortable with this victory. Now, that was really exciting for me, because normally when Arsenal went to Goodison Park, they normally end up getting beaten before this. So that was a good win, really. The next one I remember was on the 11th of February when we went away to Millwall. This was the famous match where the referee was mic'd up for a TV documentary. The FA apparently told both clubs that this was going to happen, but the problem for Arsenal was that while Millwall told their players, Arsenal apparently forgot to do so. Well, so they say anyway. This was my first of 3 trips that I've made to Millwall's ground. The first 2 were to the old Den, and the third one was to the new Den for a Kent Cup final. In the lead up to the game, I'd been to visit my grand's best friend, who had grown up in and around Millwall's old Den, and she told me that she remembers that before the Second World War, when teams would play Millwall at the old Den, when the opposition fans who came to watch their teams play would be walking down the road past Terrace housing on the way to get to the ground, the households' women would be hanging out of the upstairs windows and throwing out buckets of boiling hot water over the opposition fans as they walked past. She said to me, if you're going to go to this game, and to be honest, I'd rather you didn't, please be very careful, because she said to me that the supporters are a nightmare. Now, to be honest, by what she told me and that coupled with the events at Highbury when Arsenal played Millwall in the FA Cup's third round the previous seasons, this heightened my fears about going to the game, and I really very nearly never bothered to go. But I remember going to this game with one of my mates, and just before, when we got to the ground, just before we got to this dark footpath which we had to go down, according to the police, in order to get to the away end, I saw a guy who was selling the Millwall fanzine, and I wanted to get a copy of it, so I bought one off him. And as I finished paying for the fanzine, the guy said to me, "Who do you support, mate?" And I was thinking to myself, "You can ask me anything you want, mate, but please don't ask me that." So I just smiled at him, laughed, and said, "Who do you think, mate?" So we got into the away end, and it was packed to the rafters, and the game, to be honest, was a bit of a blur. I remember Tony Adams having a perfectly good goal disallowed when the game stood at 1-1. Anyway, Arsenal ended up winning the game 2-1, and we were kept in the ground for about 30 minutes after the match. And I think this was the game when the police were working hard to protect us from the Millwall hordes, who at one point were hurling bricks and God knows what else they could get their hands on at us. But I don't think any of these hit any of us, thank God. Eventually, I got home without any further incidents, mostly thanks to the Metropolitan Police. And after this win at Millwall, Arsenal's form slumped. They would go on to only win. They'd go on to only win 2 games out of the next 8. Their league record during this period was played 8, won 2, drew 4, lost 4, goals 4, 9 against 8, meaning they won only 10 points out of a possible 24. And that was between the 18th of February and the 2nd of April. So on the 21st of February, I travelled up to Coventry City to see Arsenal play Coventry City. And again, I bought my ticket through the Arsenal Travel Club. And it was my first and only visit so far to Coventry to watch football. And what a bonkers evening it really was. It was just absolute madness. We got on a train supplied by the Arsenal Travel Club, which took us to the closest railway station, the Highfield Road, which is Coventry's ground. And then we got transported to the ground on the bus. The game itself, as far as I can remember, was mired by controversy. Firstly, there was Coventry's goal, which came through a penalty, which sparked a furious protest from Arsenal players. In particular, Nigel Winterburn, who got himself booked for his protest. The next issue, I believe, came when Arsenal thought they should have been awarded a penalty, but the linesman or referee's assistant, as I believe they are now called, raised their flag for offside. And this again sparked a massive protest from Arsenal players. And it also caused rather heated debate on the journey home, with one fan quite rightly pointing out that the offside decisions override penalty claims, and also for pointing out that we shouldn't be relying on refereeing decisions to win us games of football. But the biggest debate happened at the end, with us all feeling rather downcast at the Coventry City defeat. We were all inside the game. We were being held in by the police, and the PA announcer for Coventry City Football Club kindly announced the results of the night's other games. And it turned out that our biggest rivals in the title race at the time, Norwich City, had lost at Tottenham Hotspur. And this led to a large group of our supporters cheering rather loudly. This led to my mate Mike, who I travelled to the game with, jumping up on one of the stanchions and shouting out, "Listening, we are Arsenal. We never ever cheered Tottenham winning, no matter what the circumstances." Anyway, so I finally arrived back at Charing Cross, and I had just arrived in time to miss the last train back home. But there was a train in about an hour to the next station up Rhine, so I thought I would get that train and get a taxi when I got there. After being in Charing Cross for about 10 minutes and noticed that there was only 2 or 3 other people in the station, suddenly I was approached by this guy who was about 25 years older than me, and he started trying to chat me up and suggesting I should go home with him. And no matter what I said to try and put him off, he kept trying. And then after about 30 minutes, a large group of people who I knew from my hometown turned up, and they chased him off, thank God. So on top of that, when we got back to the final stop of the train, they kindly gave me a lift home. And then the next day, and they all persuaded me that I should go to the police the next day. So I went to my local police station to give a statement about what had happened, as in the weeks before, a few guys had been sexually assaulted at Charing Cross or on trains travelling from Charing Cross. And it made me think, my God, the things I do for Arsenal Football Club. So the next game I remember was at home to Millwall on the 28th of February, a game that ended in 0-0 draw. I arrived into the North Bank for this game, and I was feeling really hyped up because of the behaviour of Millwall supporters in the FA Cup third round match the previous season. I think I was in the North Bank for about 5 minutes, and then suddenly I heard a voice saying, "Hello, Warren, how are you?" And it was one of the most senior managers in the NatWest Bank office where I worked. This took the wind out of my sails, and I was very subdued for the rest of the game. Arsenal did not play particularly well in the game, and to be honest, I think we were happy to get a 0-0 draw out of it, given how poorly we played. Then the next game, on the 25th of March, in the run-up to this game, all the pundits were writing off Arsenal's title charge, saying things that the wheels have come off and they've bottled it, etc., etc. Arsenal responded in this game by gaining a much-needed victory and blasting Southampton aside, and won the game 3-1, thanks to goals from Perry Groves, Paul Myerson and David Rocastle. Now, I remember watching the highlights of this game on TV and being really happy that we'd finally managed to get back to winning ways. And then the next game was on the 2nd of April. I know on there it says the 25th of March, but that's wrong. It should be the 2nd of April. And Arsenal drew with Manchester United 1-1 at Old Trafford. And the game was shown live on TV. And I remember the Old Trafford pitch was quite waterlogged, I think. And Arsenal's goal was scored by Tony Adams through their famous near post flick on routine. If I remember correctly, all the pundits were saying that Arsenal really needed to win this game to get their title charge back on track. And to be honest, I have to say I probably agreed with them. The game, if I remember correctly, was a hard-fought encounter, summed up by Brian Robson's assault on David Rocastle on the right-hand touchline. Arsenal scored fairly near the end of the game to go 1-0 up. And I was thinking, right, that's it. We've got it in the bag. We just need to keep it tight now and not do anything stupid. And then I remember a ball came into the Arsenal penalty area and Tony Adams attempted the clearance. He miscued his clearance and the ball spun up and backward over John Lukic's head into the back of Arsenal's net. So therefore, the goal the game ended in a 1-1 draw, with Tony Adams scoring at both ends. Then the next game I remember was when Arsenal played Norwich City at Highbury. The game ended with Arsenal winning the game by 5-0. Now, I went to this game and stood down near the bottom of the North Bank, and I remember chatting to a friend of mine who worked near me. And Arsenal seemed to be having trouble breaking down a stubborn Norwich City defence. And I personally thought that Arsenal were playing quite poorly. And I remember I was complaining quite a bit about it. And to me, one of the problems seemed to be that I thought that Alan Smith in particular was having a poor game. And I kept saying, I just think he should be taken off, we should substitute him, it's not working. Then Michael Thomas scored to put Arsenal 1-0 up. And then shortly after, if I remember correctly, Alan Smith scored twice in quick succession to put Arsenal 3-0 up. After this, my friend started teasing me mercilessly about wanting Alan Smith substituted, and I just hung my head in shame. And Arsenal went on to win the game by 5-0, thanks to another goal by Nigel Winterburn and Rocky Rocastle. So let's have a look at the league table. As of the 1st of May. After this game against Norwich, Arsenal sat top of the league. Liverpool was second with 2 games in hand and 6 points behind, but Arsenal had a superior goal difference of 4 goals. Then on the 6th of May, I travelled up to Middlesbrough with the Arsenal Travel Club. And by the time this game came around, we were into the final knockings of the title chase running. In fact, it was Arsenal's 34th game of the season out of 38. I travelled up to this game, like I say, with the travel club. And again, it was a football special train, which looked like it had last been used in 1969. But by the way, I don't blame British Rail for that, because if I was in charge of British Rail, I wouldn't have put on special good trains to transport us lot up there. Anyway, we arrived up to a railway station near to Middlesbrough's Ayrton Park, and thankfully there were buses waiting for us to take us to the ground. Now, this was my second visit to Ayrton Park, and it wasn't a good experience, I have to say. The only positive aspect of the trip was that Arsenal won the game. On the trip to Ayrton Park on the bus, it was just unbelievable. Now, for some reason, Middlesbrough fans hate Arsenal, and I've never been able to work out why that is. So if anyone knows, please put it in the comments section of the video, because I'd really, really like to know why. Now, as we got closer to the ground, some Middlesbrough fans approached the bus I was on and tried to attack the bus. I remember one particular guy came up to the coach, and he looked like he was frothing at the mouth, and he kicked the bus and tried to punch the window. Anyway, we finally got into the away end at Ayrton Park, which was in a little far corner of the ground. And when the Middlesbrough fans got inside in the stand, which was next to the away end, they started to try and throw things at us. But thankfully, I don't think anyone got injured. The game itself was dreadful, and it was heading for a 0-0 draw. And right near the end of the game, John Lukic launched a big kick upfield, which caused chaos in the Middlesbrough defence. And Martin Hayes pounced on the confusion and chaos to prod the ball home to give Arsenal a 1-0 win. So after this game, Arsenal were 8 points clear of Liverpool with 2 games in hand and a superior goal difference of +5. And then the next game after this was on the 13th of May when Arsenal played Derby County at home. Now, on the 10th of May, Liverpool had beaten Nottingham Forest by 1-0 thanks to a goal from John Aldridge. And so this cut Arsenal's lead at the top of the table to 5 points. I remember going to this game and being worried because I was worried that Arsenal was starting to stumble, and Liverpool's win 3 days earlier only heightened my anxieties. Added to this the fact that Arsenal had added to this the fact that if Arsenal had lost today and Liverpool won at home, so it won away at Wimbledon, they would be just 2 points behind us with a game in hand. I remember this game being an absolute nightmare. By half-time, Arsenal were 1-0 down thanks to a goal from Dean Saunders. But the good news came through from Plough Lane that Liverpool were losing 1-0 to Wimbledon. This caused a great deal of excitement and relief amongst the Arsenal fans on the North Bank. My friends and I were united in our belief that and saying, well, at least things can't get any worse. Then in the second half, Tony Adams mistimed a tackle and brought Dean Saunders down in the penalty area, and he got up and scored from the penalty spot to put Derby 2-0 up. Now, throughout the game, Arsenal had missed a succession of chances, and then late in the game, Arsenal scored to bring the game back to 2-1, thanks to an Alan Smith goal. After the game, though, a depressing mood descended onto the North Bank when we heard that Liverpool had come from behind to beat Wimbledon by 2-1. Many of my mates believed that we had blown our title chances as Liverpool were now only 2 points behind with a game in hand. The title race was now a straight fight between Arsenal and Liverpool, because the third place team were 9 points behind Arsenal and 7 points behind Liverpool, and they only had 2 games left. So let's look at the league table, and as I say, Arsenal were 2 points ahead of Liverpool, but Liverpool had a game in hand, and the goal difference was down. The gap in goal difference was now only 2 in favour of Arsenal, but Arsenal had scored quite a lot more goals than Liverpool. So I think this was probably the last home game of the season for Arsenal that season. It was a game against Wimbledon at Highbury. The day before this game, Liverpool defeated Queen's Park Rangers 2-0 at Anfield, which meant that Liverpool were now sitting top of the table by 1 point, and both clubs' goal difference was now exactly the same, i.e. plus 35. The nervousness on the North Bank for this game, I have to say, though, was palpable. The game was difficult to watch because both sides missed numerous chances, but mostly because of the fact how nervous I was going into this game. Arsenal took the lead through an absolute screamer of a goal from Nigel Winterburn when he struck a shot from well outside the Wimbledon penalty area into the top far corner of the net at the clock end of the ground. Alan Court then equalised for Wimbledon just for half-time, and then in the second half, Paul Merson put Arsenal back in front before Wimbledon drew level again, this time through a Paul McGee goal, which was, like Nigel Winterburn's goal in the first half, was an absolute belter. The game ended in a 2-2 draw, which meant that Arsenal returned to the top of the table by virtue of the fact that Arsenal had scored more goals. But crucially for Liverpool, they still had a game in hand, which was to be a home game against West Ham United, due to be played on 6 days later, I believe, on the 23rd of May. I also remember in this game, Arsenal had a corner in front of the North Bank, and Vinnie Jones was marking the front post. And I remember him looking up at the North Bank and waving his arms up in the air, encouraging us to make more noise. And also to get behind our team, which had the desired effect because the North Bank started to up the volume a bit. This incident led me to believe for many years that Vinnie Jones was an Arsenal fan, but I later learned that in fact he grew up being a Spurs fan. So here we go. With one game left for Arsenal, they were sat top of the table by virtue of the fact that they'd scored more goals than Liverpool. They were both on 73 points and both had a goal difference of plus 35, but Liverpool had a game in hand on Arsenal. Okay, so on Tuesday the 23rd of May, Liverpool played their game in hand over Arsenal, which they won by 5-1 against West Ham United. And I remember laying in the bath listening to updates from this game on the radio. And the thing that stands out in my memory about this game was the West Ham fans singing, Arsenal, 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 at the end of the game to Liverpool fans at Anfield. So, after this game, Liverpool were now top. They were 3 points clear of Arsenal. They didn't have a game in hand anymore. They had a 4-goal difference better than Arsenal, but Arsenal had scored more goals. So the Liverpool's 5-0 win had caused this, and it meant that in order for Arsenal to get back up above Liverpool on the final game of the season, they'd need to overturn this. And this meant now that the title race went down to the very last game of the season, which was between Liverpool and Arsenal. The two teams were first and second in the table. Every other team in the first division at this stage had finished their league campaigns. And the Liverpool-Arsenal game at Anfield on the 26th of May, 1989, had been postponed earlier in the season. I think it was about a month before, because of the aftermath of the Hillsborough disaster, and it was postponed as a mark of respect when 96 Liverpool fans were murdered by the Yorkshire police. This game was now a virtual playoff for the First Division League title. And in order for Arsenal to win the title, they would need to beat Liverpool at Anfield by at least 2 clear goals. And Liverpool at this time were one of, if not the best club side in the world. And they had not lost at home by 2 goals for over 3 years. In the lead up to this game, I was getting more and more excited and hyped up about the game. And as I'd never ever seen Arsenal win the league title. And in fact, the last time they had won the league title was 18 years before, when I was only 4 years old in 1971. Now, before the game, my Arsenal mates and I were incredibly nervous, and none of us believed that we could do what we required at Anfield to win the title. Personally, I wasn't confident, but I thought if we don't do it, let's at least go down fighting and go out in a blaze of glory. So, on the day of the game, usually for away games, Arsenal would travel up on the day before the game, play the game, and return after the game. However, for this game, George Graham decided that they would travel up travel up on the day of the game, which apparently had something to do with a book he'd read called The Naked Ape. For this game, George Graham decided to employ a five-man defence with David O'Leary deployed as a sweeper behind Tony Adams and Steve Bold. Now, I remember when the starting lineup came out, all the pundits were shocked and were trying to say that Arsenal had never played with a sequel before, which wasn't true really, because they'd done it on a number of occasions throughout the season. Now, apparently, according to Paul Merson, George Graham had spoken to the squad and predicted that Arsenal would win the game 3-0. Apparently, some of the players thought he'd lost the plot. And according to Merson, the game plan was that Arsenal should keep the game tight up until half-time and then score an early goal in the second half, which would put the wobbles under Liverpool. And then Arsenal would score a second and Liverpool would then start panicking and Arsenal would then get the third. So the starting 11 for this game was John Lukic was in goal. David O'Leary was playing as a sweeper behind Tony Adams and Steve Bold, who were the centre-back pairing. And then left-back was Nigel Winterburn. Right-back was Lee Dixon. And in midfield, there was a trio of Michael Thomas, Kevin Richardson and David Rocastle. And up front was Paul Merson and Alan Smith. Now, the day of the match arrived and I was so nervous and excited, all rolled into one. The game was screened on TV, I think on ITV. And when the coverage started, the news came out that there were massive traffic jams on the motorways up to Liverpool. And so as a consequence, the police took the decision to delay the kickoff by 15 minutes so all the supporters could get into the ground. The game kicked off. Before the game kicked off, when Arsenal came out, they all had a bouquet of flowers and they took the flowers around to every part of the ground at Anfield, which I thought was a really, really nice gesture. Now the game kicked off and Arsenal seemed to be playing well, with Kevin Richardson in particular was superb. The amount of work that he was getting through was incredible. It was just unbelievable. So if you ever get a chance to watch the game, make sure you watch the amount of work that man does. It was just unbelievable. Liverpool didn't seem to be threatening that much either. And in fact, I seem to remember that Steve Bold nearly put Arsenal 1-0 up with a header. At the end of the first half, the score stood at 0-0. And apparently during the halftime break, during the halftime break, my nerves were absolutely shredded. And God knows what my blood pressure would have been if it had been red. Anyway, I was thinking to myself, okay, we need to score an early goal in the second half. Otherwise, this is going to get even more difficult than it already is. Apparently, when the Arsenal players went in for the halftime break, they were expecting George Graham to get stuck into them. But apparently he said, excellent, well done, lads. Everything's going to plan. Now, in the second half, the game started, and in the 53rd minute, Arsenal won a free kick on the right-hand side of the Liverpool penalty area. Nigel Winterburn floated the ball into the Liverpool area, and Alan Smith glanced his head into the Liverpool net to put Arsenal 1-0 up. The Liverpool players then immediately surrounded the referee, complaining about the goal. Quite what they were complaining about, I have no idea. I've since heard that the Liverpool players were trying to convince the referee that Alan Smith had not touched the ball, which in my opinion is absolutely ridiculous. But I guess if you try and it works, then fair play. But before Alan Smith had scored the goal, there was no mud splashings or anything on his face. And then directly after he scored, he had a ball-shaped mud mark on the side of his face. The referee went to consult with his linesman, And after this, the goal was given and Arsenal 1-0 up. Then Arsenal, after scoring, started to push forward in search of their second goal that they needed. And about 15 minutes before the end, Kevin Richardson played in Michael Thomas, who was in the middle of the penalty area, but unfortunately his shot was smothered by Liverpool goalkeeper Bruce Grobbelaar. Shortly after this, George Graham decided to make a tactical change and brought on Martin Hayes and Perry Groves, and he switched to a 4-4-2 formation and disposed with the sweeper. Then, because of this, Liverpool then started to create chances to equalise, but they just failed to take any of the chances that they were presented with. Then, with the game into the 90th minute, Kevin Richardson went down injured and the game was paused. While he was receiving treatment, the TV cameras focused on Liverpool's Steve McMahon, who was gesturing to his teammates that was only 1 minute left. And the TV commentator commented, Steve McMahon has obviously got words from the cop. Steve McMahon has obviously got the word from the cop. Then I believe it almost into the final minute of injury time, John Lukic played the ball out to Lee Dixon, who played a long ball forward, which was flicked on by Alan Smith and into the path of Michael Thomas, who was charging through the midfield. And he was just about reaching the middle of the penalty area, with Liverpool defenders rushing towards him from both sides, and Bruce Grobbelaar coming out of his goal. And it was at this point that the TV commentator said the immortal words, "And it's up for grabs now." And he flicked the ball past Grobbelaar to give Arsenal a 2-0 lead. A short while after this, the game ended and Arsenal won 2-0 and Arsenal were crowned champions. That moment I had waited for since I'd been a 5-year-old. So it's just, I get really emotional when I think about this game. The moment I'd waited for since I was a 5-year-old boy, standing on the clock end at Highbury with my dad watching Arsenal draw 0-0 when Liverpool had come. I remember I was jumping up and screaming and crying with joy. People were telephoning me to congratulate me, and then I'd start up again. God knows what my poor mum must have thought, and the neighbours. God only knows. Anyway, so here we have it. The final league table confirms that Arsenal was league champions. The first time in my life that I ever saw it. And I couldn't have been happier. They won it by the virtue of the fact they scored more goals. Arsenal had scored 73 goals against Liverpool's 65. The goal difference between Liverpool and Arsenal was exactly the same, and they both had 76 points. The next day, I got up really early and I went up to the newsagents and bought myself a copy of every single newspaper that I could find and watched all the news programs that I could find on TV. And here you can see all the photographs of the Arsenal players celebrating their famous league title victory. My favourite one is of Michael Thomas and Rocky with the trophy. And then you can see George Graham down the bottom there holding up the league title. So that was it. That was the end of the season, and what a season it was. And it was an incredible roller coaster, emotional journey for me, and one that I absolutely love and I'll never, ever forget. Especially that night at Anfield. That for me is probably the happiest moment I've ever had watching Arsenal. Oh, Yeah, I'm so sorry. Excuse me. Anyway, so yeah, what a great season. Great ups and downs. The trip to Coventry, the win at the Tottenham, the win at Anfield, winning the Mercantile Credit League Centenary Trophy. It was just an amazing season. And then Arsenal, shortly after this, I didn't know about this, but they went and did a trophy parade and went to Islington Town Hall and showed the trophy to the supporters, and apparently there was 200,000 plus, or maybe 250,000 people there to see it. And it's my biggest regret that I never went, but I didn't know. But anyway, there you go. What a season. Unbelievable. And to win it on the last kick of the season like that was just unbelievable. I don't think it'll ever be repeated. It's just incredible. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. I'm sure you'll agree it was quite an exciting one, and looking back at it, brought back a lot of really great memories for me. Anyway, so yeah, I hope you enjoy it. Don't forget, like I say, please like, subscribe and share the video. That would be brilliant. Also, don't forget, it doesn't cost you anything to subscribe to my channel. It's all completely free. There's no cost to you involved in any of this. So what's stopping you? Why would you not want to subscribe to my channel? Anyway, I hope that you're all okay, that you enjoyed it, like I say, and that you're all doing really well and you're healthy and fine and looking after each other. So until I see you the next time, remember, keep talking and spread some love and friendship around the world. And yeah, come on, you Gunners. Oh, yeah, I just wanted to say commiserations as well to the GB ladies football team today, who unfortunately lost 4-2 to, they lost 4-2 in the semi-finals of the the quarterfinals of the Olympic football tournament to Australia. So, and also, let's hope that the Lions, British and Irish Lions, smash the Springboks at the weekend. So anyway, take care, and I look forward to seeing you next weekend. Take care now, guys. Bye. And oh yeah, thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.